So we just kind of went into it pretty whimsically, honestly, but we thought as a consumer, it looks simple enough. So we opened 2 days before they announced the biggest recession since the Great Depression. So all the education we didn't have, we got it by fire.
Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. Have you ever been walking through an airport, seeing all of the long lines in the restaurants and thought, I wonder how much money they make and who even owns them? Me too. So I was really excited when I got the opportunity to talk to Randy Hazelton. Randy and his company H&H Hospitality own and operate multiple restaurants in airports, one of them being a Shake Shack restaurant. Between all of his ownership and joint ventures, his restaurants will produce over $50 million in sales this year. And in this episode, we dive deep into how Randy got involved in this business, the barrier to entry, mistakes he's made, and just a masterclass into the business of operating airport concessions. This was a really cool episode, and I think you'll enjoy. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my brand new free franchise masterclass at buyaprofitablefranchise.com. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to tarekjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. All right, guys, welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. I'm super excited to have Randy Hazelton here. Randy, thanks for coming on, man.
Tarek, it is a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to the conversation, man.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the most excited I've been for a podcast in a while. I was laying in bed few nights ago and I'm scrolling Facebook and I see this article by Forbes and I start reading it and I'm like, man, what a cool story. That is so fascinating. And I sent it over to my team and said, man, this would be cool if we can get this guy on the podcast. And so here we are a few days later. So, thanks for making the time. I'm really excited to dive into this.
No doubt. I appreciate that. That is, I know you've been doing this for quite some time. So coming from you, that's quite a compliment. And I will try to do your platform justice. How about that?
I'm sure you will. So tell us about, you have one of those, I feel like you have one of those businesses where, when you're either at a party or a networking group or you're out and everyone's like, what do you do? What do you do? And they go, what? You own restaurants and airports? And then all these questions pop up. So I do want to get into your story of how you got there, but tell us just a high level overview about your business.
Yeah, so what they call it is airport concessions. And to the point that you made, with people not understanding what I do, when you say concessions, they think like at a carnival or something like, oh, so you sell cotton candy and hot peanuts. No, they just call it airport concessions. But all it is restaurants in airports. So almost like an airport restaurateur. So I own and operate restaurants that exist in airport spaces, substantially franchises. So I don't own a McDonald's, for example, but I would be a franchisee of a McDonald's that you might see in an airport. A better example might be Shake Shack, which I do actually own. So that's what airport concessions is. That's what I do, but we are airport restaurateurs, essentially.
So cool. And so tell us about the brands that you own and what airports are you in?
So I'm headquartered in Atlanta, so that's home base. And that is the majority of our portfolio. We do have some stuff in DFW in Texas and some stuff in Washington, D.C. in the Dulles Airport. The brands we own, I mentioned Shake Shack, A couple years ago, we acquired a couple of brands, one of them being Freshens yogurt and smoothies, another one, Famous Familiar Pizza. You might see those in malls and other airports. We're partners in a few brands such as Vino Volo, which is a wine bar. We have a couple of coffee shops, Fresh to Order, which is a local kind of health-oriented concept. But we have about 10 different brands that we own and operate and are partnered in.
Wow, that's really cool. And I'm curious to dive into the complexity of the operations, because I operated at just a juice and smoothie and acai bowl franchise and had a couple of locations, and I can't even imagine the operational complexity that comes with operating that many different brands, yet alone an airport. So is it as complex as it sounds?
Yes. I'm gonna be honest. It is. So what makes the airport complex is that one, square footage in an airport comes at a premium. So what they try to do is pack a whole lot into a little. So generally you'll find that the square footage that you have to operate out of is a lot less. So let's say I don't know what the size of your square foot of your smoothie place was on the street, but my Freshens yogurt is maybe 500 square feet. You know, we do bowls and rice bowls and all of that. So you got to be really efficient with how you configure the space, such that your staff can easily get to the different points that they need to ultimately deliver what the customer is asking for. You have to be really efficient with inventory because storage is pretty minimal. So you're getting regular orders pretty much on a daily basis if the vendor will do that. But what makes it complex is it's a high volume kind of business and it's packed into a very small space. So how you, again, configure the space, how you staff it, how you manage inventory becomes a little bit more of an intensive exercise. So that's what makes it complex on the airport side. On having multiple brands, it's also, I mean, you're changing channels all the time because you have different brands, which has different brand standards. You have different products. And there are some instances where you can put kind of an enterprise-wide, say, POS system, where we now have a POS system that we're kind of rolling out across the rest of our stores. But you'll have some brands that say, well, we only like to use this system because we like to tap into the data a certain way. So that can become complex. So there are those issues where you will have some level of difference between or across brands, and it makes for you having to be very kind of nimble when you're approaching your different businesses, your different stores.
Wow, interesting. I never even thought about that. That's a good point. So prior to that, you guys would just have to figure out how to operate and pull the data on multiple POS systems, huh?
That's right. And that can become a manual process. I mean, tech has gotten better in the space to where there is a lot more compatibility. There are platforms that offer compatibility across different POS systems. So that's been better. But yeah, there was a point where we are just manually pulling this data into our kind of spreadsheet, if you will, so we can look at all our sales enterprise-wide. And that's, not the funnest exercise, but, it's the nature of the beast.
I'm sure. What's your favorite point of sale system that you've used so far?
So right now,
Toast?
Yeah, and they're not paying me for this, but I'm gonna go back to them for the endorsement. But so far, it's good. I mean, they're low on cost. It's really user friendly so far. I mean, this is a newer rollout. It's really user friendly. They just acquired. I think it's Restaurant 365, but that offers a lot of back-end support, inventory management, analytics, so we can get smart on what we're doing. And so far, it's been good. It's been good. And I tried a couple, kissed a few frogs, but this is the best so far.
That's hilarious. So is that who you're trying to get system-wide throughout all of your brands is Toast?
It is. It is. I think the last thing that we're looking for from them is, as coming out of COVID, the industry has gone a lot more automated. I mean, it feels like everything's gone more automated. But in the context of those self-order kiosks, they are just now getting to the point of rolling one of those out so a customer can come to the store and kind of order on their own. which tends to drive up check average because people don't feel bad about ordering all the stuff they want as opposed to having to say it to the cashier. So, and it just makes for more efficiency because that's one less person you got to have directly engaging that customer. So we can focus on getting it out quickly and that kind of stuff. We're waiting for them to roll that out. And then that will be when we're probably going to go more enterprise wide.
Nice. Yeah, we wound up switching to when we first got involved in the franchise. They had Our Power, which was this.
Okay.
You do know Our Power?
I'm not familiar
Completely. Okay. Well, good. Because there's no reason to. They were incredibly antiquated, and I think about a year into the franchise, they did a conversion to Toast, and Toast was awesome. Yeah, I really like Toast. They're everywhere now.
Yep.
Okay, so how in the world do you get into the airport concessions business? I mean, is that something that you wanted to do growing up? My intention with this podcast is to help you build your empire. If you've gotten a single piece of value, one of the best ways you can help me and the podcast is to simply press the like button on YouTube. Lastly, share this podcast. Share it with someone who you know who is an empire builder. Imagine the impact you can have by helping them learn something that can build their business and empire. People will associate the value they got from this information from you, the person that shared it with them, all because you shared it with them. I appreciate you and your support. Let's get back to the episode.
No, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. And even walking through airports, I didn't even think about who would be owning those businesses. I guess I assumed the airport itself or the city, who knows? But I got into it because I came out of college and I worked in corporate America and quickly learned about myself that corporate America was just not for me. And so I left. And I was investing in real estate at the time, so I had been able to save away some money and then, done okay in corporate America so that I could also save money from that income. And after I left corporate America, and before I just kind of blew all my money, I had the idea to get into business for myself, me and a business partner. And what seemed most accessible to us was open a restaurant. Like, why not? We just, we spend a lot of time in there, spend a lot of money, hanging out a lot. We can do this. And so we just kind of went into it pretty whimsically, honestly. But we thought, as a consumer, it looks simple enough. Like you understood the component parts. All right, you need food, you need space, so we thought, right? Super oversimplified it. But opened up the restaurant, you made all the mistakes that one could possibly make. But we had put all of
like what? What are a couple of the mistakes that you had made?
Like everything. Like hiring the right people, like training people well, knowing what to train people on, and how much reinforcement of those kinds of skills and things to do it required, how much to spend on a build out, the type of space to get, to invest in. What else? The initial menu, the hours, colors of you name it. We just we were two folks that had never worked in a restaurant, never studied hospitality, didn't have any personal experience with running a restaurant, no training about it. So, we made all the mistakes that one going into it in that fashion would. But what happened is we put all our money into it, and we don't come from a place where, if you mess up, it'll be fine. It won't be fine. Things will definitely not be fine. You got to figure this out. So we had to dig in and learn the business and learn how to operate it. And we did that. We did that before really everything hit the wall. And then we got really popular around our city. I mean, what we did do, one of the things we did do right, although we paid.
What year was this, by the way?
So we started construction in 2007 and we opened
heck of a time.
2008. Yeah, right. So we opened 2 days before they announced the biggest recession since the Great Depression. That was our, you talk about another mistake. Like, so people got less disposable income. We're like, you got this new restaurant. Come in and check us out. But one of the things we did was we put a lot of investment into the physical decor because we knew in this town in Atlanta, people appreciated nice places to go and patronize and hang out and all that kind of stuff. So people wanted to be inside the building. That's what we had going for us. And they wanted to be inside the building long enough for us to kind of figure out how to operate well. And in that, we became a place where a lot of folks around Atlanta would come and meet and dine and do happy hours, and everybody from business people to just, your hipsters to the people that run our city. And in the process of that happening and we're there working it every day. So we're meeting thousands of people on a week.
You're working in the business daily.
Every day. We did everything. So all the education we didn't have, we got it by fire in the first year and a half. But we also met a lot of people that began to want to see us do well. And in meeting those people, we had conversations about the airport concession space. And they said, hey, have you guys ever thought about the airport? And we're like, what is that? You want us to sell cotton candy and honey roasted peanuts? And said, no, it's
and when you say people are bringing this up, like what kind of people? Because I feel like that's such a niche. It's such a niche area to even know about and bring up that conversation.
It is. So we happen to have a lot of elected officials that would come to our restaurant. Airports are generally owned or controlled by either the city, the state, or some airport authority. Well, some of these people were our patrons. And, man, you guys are in here, you're working hard, you're doing a good job. Have you ever thought about this? So that was one group. Another group happened to be some of the folks that were at the time operating in Atlanta, and also thought that, we were doing a good job. Hey, have you guys ever considered this? So those were the conversations that exposed us to that industry. And we just kept having those conversations and learning more about it. And once we figured out what the opportunity was, the light bulb went off. And we said, yeah, we are interested in this. And we began to move intentionally toward that industry.
Wow, incredible. So what was your very first location in the airport?
So for context, one of the reasons why some of the folks that talked to us wanted us to be in the airport was that there is a program called the ACDBE program, which stands for Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. What that is a business that does less than $55 million in revenue that is woman or minority owned. And the airports get federal dollars based on their level of ACDBE participation, the amount of minority-owned businesses that are part of the business community in airports, that are part of the revenue share. So big companies want to partner with companies like mine so that they qualify for those dollars and check all the boxes, to that end. And so we were talking to a bunch of companies that wanted us to be their partner. So the first deal we did was with a company that was based out of Atlanta, and they were competing for 10 restaurant spaces in the airport. The airport, when they put out these packages, they call them, but when they allow for people to come in and take over leases, you have to compete for them. And so you'll put together a proposal that says, hey, here's why you should pick us for these leases. And they'll package them oftentimes in 2 or 5 or 10. Well, this in 2 or 5 or 10 unit kind of opportunity. So
in the same airport?
In the same airport, yeah. So they'll go out by the city or by the authority as these kind of packages. So we partnered with a company that was competing for a 12-store package, a 12-store opportunity, and we won as a joint venture partner, a minority joint venture partner. So our first deal was to be a partner in 12 stores at the Atlanta airport. And so that was the first one. We were a minority, non-operating partner, but that was our first deal. It was a 12-store deal.
That's incredible. And so are those 12 stores, are they already thought out and planned for as a part of the bid process? Like it's like, hey, we're going to put in X, Y, and Z into each space?
Yeah, so the airport will kind of dictate, they will set some parameters around what they want. So let's say it's a 10-store package. They'll say, okay, we want one burger place, one pizza place, one coffee shop, one full-service dining. And then it's our job to go find what we think are the best representations or concepts for that. So we'll go get the best burger place. And that's when we got into franchising. So we'll go find the best burger place we can, the best pizza place we can, and we'll put that forward as our proposal. So they are kind of predetermined to some degree, and then we fill in what we think will make it special.
Wow, that's incredibly fascinating. And so, how does that work in terms of like your partnership or joint venture? So, is it like your group actually operates the restaurants or concessions? I guess getting used to this terminology here.
We do. Our joint venture does now. So there are two partners in that joint venture. It was my company and then the majority company. They were operating. They had the responsibility to operate because we were just a couple of guys that had one store, and we couldn't scale up to 12 stores in an airport with the kind of volume there. So we leveraged their experience and all their infrastructure because they were already in Atlanta. And we kind of supported the operations, but they had direct responsibility. Now we're in a position where we bid on stuff on our own sometimes, and we operated ourselves. But we started out with them as the majority owner and operator.
That's so cool. I didn't even realize that Shake Shack franchise, because Shake Shack is one of the ones in your portfolio, right?
That's correct. And they only franchise in, we call them specialty markets, but like airports, some arenas, that kind of thing, or international. But everything you see domestic, just kind of street side, they're corporate-owned stores, and currently they don't franchise.
Yeah, because they're publicly traded, right?
That's right. They are. Yeah. And our company was only the third company to have a franchise or license deal, we call it, in airports. It's essentially the same thing. The first two were multi-billion-dollar, multinational companies, huge portfolios. And then you got a couple of guys from Atlanta well, let us do it too. So that was an interesting conversation over the course of years, but we got there.
Wow. I could imagine that's the case. I try to eat pretty healthy overall. So I don't really eat, burgers and stuff like that often. But when I feel like I want to indulge, I'll hit up Shake Shack. That's one of my spots when I'm ready to go.
Yeah. It's funny. When we got the license, I haven't eaten red meat in years. And I had not been eating red meat in years prior to going to Shake Shack. So we're up in New York touring their stores, and one of the funny guys that came up with us, knowing I don't eat red meat, was like, "Oh, Randy, you got to try the burgers." And I don't eat red meat, and so I ended up eating a burger after not eating red meat for a couple of years. Paid for it a little bit later. Shake Shack is good product. It was about what my system had gotten used to. But yeah, funny enough, I try to be pretty healthy too. But we did this to satisfy the desires of the airport.
Yeah, that is funny. So in terms of your portfolio now, you guys are in multiple airports, right? I think I saw Atlanta, Dulles, and what was the other one?
Atlanta, Dulles, and Dallas, DFW. We just got a deal where we will be getting into Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a small airport, but I'm really excited about it, a lot just because of the history and legacy there. And then we got a couple other airports with deals on the table that we think will be into probably Q1, Q2. So right now it's just the three that you mentioned, soon to be a fourth. But we're pretty bullish on growth, and we think in the net, quarter one or quarter two, you'll see a few more.
Yeah, interesting. How do you're talking about the leases and the bids, et cetera. In those deals, do the airports take a certain percent of the revenue? Like how are those structured, or what are you able to share kind of about that?
I mean, that's your senses are right. I mean, in that, so there's what we call a percentage rent, where they will just take a percentage of the rent. And it has ranged typically between about 15%, about 15 and 20%. Back in the day, a lot of sales, right? Back in the day, it used to be a lot less. I was not around then. But now it's about, 15 to 20%. And if you haven't kind of modeled out the financial performance well, you can get yourself in a position where you have a business that is not making money or losing. Because 15 to 20% of a dollar on top of franchise fees and everything else, cost of labor, all this, I mean, that can get really expensive. So it's important. People think about airports and say, man, there's so much volume in here. Look at all these passengers. And all that is true. But the cost to operate is higher on every level, practically every level. But yeah, so it's typically a percentage rent. They also will do sometimes something called a MAG, or minimum annual guarantee, which is the amount of rent that, regardless of whether you make, 10 million or $10, you will owe. That can also get really, if you over project that or overbid that, because a lot of times they'll say, give us what you will offer as your minimum guarantee. And if you get too aggressive just to be attractive in the bid and you get held to that and your sales aren't there, you're going to have some problems. And so, but that's the other part of it is the minimum annual guarantee, the amount that you say, okay, regardless, I'm going to pay this amount. So it's the higher of the two.
Yeah, interesting. And so I know that in kind of traditional commercial leases, they'll have language around natural breakpoints and things like that. Is that something that's in those leases as well, or not really?
I haven't seen them coming from the airports. I've seen them just on the franchise deal side, where you can say, between this revenue and this revenue is this amount, and then above that is. But airports, it tends to be, it's just a straight percentage rent and a flat MAG rent.
Yeah. So how do you go about creating those projections? Like when you're thinking about, okay, there's a bid that we want to go ahead and throw our hat in the ring, and you got to start putting together a pro forma. How in the world do you even start putting that together?
So I now just use the experience of my own history, because I've been out there now for well over a decade. When I started, I would use the experience and history of the people that I partner with. So my first deal, I came in with a partner that had been operating 30 years in airports, in that one in particular. And so we would kind of build a pro forma projection based on their historical performance. Also, many of the airports, because these are government assets, a lot of the information is public record. So in Atlanta, for example, I can look and see the sales of every single business in the airport. I have access to it, and it's public. Again, it's public information. I'm not, hacking into somebody's system. It is shared publicly, and I can go and say, okay, this location with this brand did about this amount of money, and I also know how many passengers are traveling on that concourse in a given period of time, so I can start to project out, okay, that will probably mean this amount for me if I'm competing for that space when it comes up, when it expires.
That's really interesting. So what does that I guess bid process look like? I would imagine it sounds fairly complex, and it sounds like things that you mentioned, you're talking in terms of years, in terms of securing things. So is everything that you're applying for through that ACDBE program, and like, what does that bid process look like? Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast episode so far. One of the most consistent things that we hear from people that reach out to us is that buying a franchise feels really confusing. There's so many options out there. It's a scary decision. They don't know how to vet or do the due diligence or really narrow down on the right franchise for them. And then they really feel alone in the process. You might be the only one in your family who's ever pursued buying a franchise or being an entrepreneur. Or maybe you've tried to start a side hustle before, or other businesses like me. Like before franchising, I was not able to crack the code on entrepreneurship. I'd like to invite you to reach out and work with us. We've helped many clients buy franchises, get them profitable, or buy resale businesses that are thriving. I'm talking about highly profitable resales, great value. We've allowed many of our clients to actually quit their job right away and replace their income immediately. So if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise, doing due diligence, vetting it, or resale, then go ahead and go to tardjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. All right, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yes, so the ACDB program is a separate program that's typically managed by the state, but could be managed by the city. And that is a certification that you get that makes one more attractive in bidding for this stuff. So that's just a certification. It's an application. You fill out the application. I'm oversimplifying. It's a lot of documentation because they want to verify you are who you are and you can do what you say you can do. In my case, is operate restaurants, but you can log on either. For us, it's our Department of Transportation. It's probably that for most folks. But you can log on to your local kind of DBE certifying agency and just go through the process of filling out an application. There are consultants for that too. So the bid process, it looks like the airport saying, okay, we have 50 leases that are coming up for expiration, let's say at the end of the year. And here's what we now want to do with these spaces. We want to offer these spaces up for, they call it RFP, but we want to offer them up to be competed on. And we're going to divide these spaces, these 50 spaces, let's say into 10 packages. So we're going to have 10 packages of 10 stores, and they'll say, for package number one, we want 2 burger places, 3 coffee shops, 1 full service dining, and they'll do that for every package. And then say, we are going to charge 15% rent for this package. We want the proponent or the bidder who have 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience or have, $10 million or more annual revenue. We want them to have this much in, secured capital or, bonding and insurance. I mean, they put these parameters around making sure that you have the resources to support this opportunity. So, Joe Schmo off the street can't go in and say, hey, I'm going to take over Atlanta. You got to show that because this is a huge infrastructural asset. And there's a lot of people depending on a good experience. So they put all these qualifiers in the bid, and then you build a team around that. And that could look like partnering with people, or if you have the capacity to do it yourself, then you demonstrate that in your proposal. Well, we have this experience. Here is our revenue. Here are the brands we bring, and then you put that forward for that to be, just considered. And the decision-making authority, whoever that is, and that can vary, will then look at all the people that came forward and competed for this, and based on what they are looking for, they'll score them and then award it to whoever performed the best in the process.
Interesting. And what's the timeline for something like that? Is that like a 6 month, a year, 2 year, 3 years?
That's a great question. It varies. It varies across markets. It varies across administrations, and so I've seen they can go very quickly. Some airports have kind of property managers, so it's not the city itself directly managing the process. And sometimes those processes can go quicker. It could be a 30-day turnaround. Also depends on the size of the bid and how many people. I mean, if you have, 20 companies bidding on 100 locations, well, that's a lot of stuff to get through. Versus some airports might put out a couple of locations at a time, and you'll have less companies bidding on it, so that can go quicker. But I've seen it go from anywhere from about 30 days to maybe 12 to 18 months, just depending. So that varies. I mean, there's quite a range in terms of turnaround time. I think now across the industry, everyone is looking to get faster on that. And I know in Atlanta, they've done a lot of work, like getting way more expedient about getting through that process, but it can depend.
Yeah. And so I would imagine with that many different brands, is there any operational efficiency that you get? Because that it just seems really complex. I mean, you could have different suppliers, right? With all of them, like everything is different.
Yeah. I mean, there are some efficiencies, but it is less efficient than when you're operating a single brand or just a couple of brands. I mean, it just kind of is. Where you can get efficiency is when you get to say district managers or multi-unit managers, utilizing them across brands. But that also means they have to be trained on each brand. So they still got to have the knowledge to know what they're looking for as I call it changing the channel, but going into different brands. So you can get that. There are some brands that are a little bit more flexible with, say, the product and the purveyors you use or the distributors who's supplying the food. There are some brands that allow for more flex, where it's like, hey, we're using Cisco with this one. Is it okay that we use it here? They got the same product. But there are other brands that will remain nameless that are like, we're going to do it this way, and that is it. And you just have to be able to work around that. So it is less efficient, but you can find some efficiencies.
Yeah. And, I was watching your interview with Forbes, which was just, really well done. And congratulations on that spotlight, which is really cool. For sure. By the way, how did that happen?
So, it just kind of came to me, and it happened very quickly for me. But in Atlanta, Forbes launched this initiative called Forbes BLK, where they are intentionally highlighting Black-owned businesses and Black entrepreneurs. And they came and met with city leadership and our mayor in particular and said, listen, this is what we want to do. And we want to put a spotlight on Atlanta because Atlanta has a lot of Black, really dope entrepreneurs that are doing some incredible things. And they thought it was a good place to kind of launch this initiative. So they came together with the mayor and city leadership in general and really did a big press conference and talked about what they want to make out of this, and also how we're going to do a conference next month. And in that process, one of my really a friend of mine was at the press conference and also knew the editor and mentioned to the editor that he should consider talking to me about it. And I got a call a couple of days later. And we had a short conversation, and I suppose he liked what he heard. And the next thing I know, they were flying down with cameras and microphones and putting wires under my shirt. And we got to talking, and it just kind of went from there. But it really was a contact of mine, a good friend of mine, that recommended that I would make for the kind of profile that they're looking to highlight. So just kind of got lucky, I suppose.
Yeah, that's cool, man. They say what luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yes, I believe in that fully. I really do. So,
yeah, I like that quote a lot. So you talked in the interview about why you like franchising so much and kind of the copy and paste, business model overall.
Yep.
Before we dive into that, you said that some of your locations are technically franchises. Some are licensing. What's the difference?
So the difference is the amount of regulation behind each. The franchise industry is governed by the SEC, the same people that govern the stock exchange, for example. So there are stringent rules. You can't just go and franchise your business. You have to conform to the regulations around that. Because you are representing a system and a brand, and they are looking for integrity around that. Licensing is a somewhat less rigid version of franchise, where you're not beholden to as many regulations. And so part of why that's important is because you have a brand like Shake Shack that, as you mentioned, they don't franchise. And they don't want to be seen as a company that franchises. And so they don't have to go through the process of becoming a franchise. They can say, well, we did a license here for this particular space, which doesn't open.
That's technically a license.
It's technically a license, yeah. And it's technically a license. And I think about 9 of 10 of mine are licenses as opposed to franchises. But it keeps the certain levels of liability kind of out of the mix for a brand like Shake Shack. So it gives a little bit more room to do business with operators outside of the company, and also prevents having to go the more strict, kind of SEC route of getting into franchise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And from my understanding, that the lines can be fairly blurred in terms of businesses that are licenses and franchises. I've heard a bunch of stories of people getting in trouble after they've grown their particular brand and they license it out, and then the state comes back and says, "Well, nope, you're actually operating as a franchise, and you didn't know it." And then then they get in trouble and have to go and create a franchise model and all those different things. But so I guess what's different around, let's say, a Shake Shack, which you're licensing, versus one of the franchise businesses? Like, can you give us an example of the difference in terms of the structure?
From a structure standpoint, it's like a deal structure standpoint, it's the same. Like it really is the same. I mean, you tend to have a royalty, which is a percentage of a dollar. You'll tend to have a franchise fee, which is the cost to get the rights to operate the brand. And then most of the time you would have a marketing fee just, for licensing or franchises. Now in airports, you tend to not have a marketing fee because you can't, we're not impacted by marketing in the same way a street side business is. I mean, people go to airports to fly, not to eat. They just eat on the way to flying. So, but from a structure standpoint, it's the same. What makes it feel different between brands is the level of kind of hands-on management that the brand, kind of looks for or performs with the operator. So some brands are very much hands-on, checking in with great frequency, and other brands are a little bit more hands-off and give you flexibility to operate. So the feel is different based on the brand, but the structure is essentially the same.
Yeah, interesting. That's really fascinating. So why do you like the franchise and licensing model so much?
Well, I like it, one, because I almost totally lost everything when I started because I didn't know what I was doing, but I went into it like with all the ideas, many of which were wrong, and it cost me going through bankruptcy and really having to get through some hard times. And when I got into franchising, I didn't have to think about what makes sense here. I found brands that had already figured that out, and they presented the entire playbook of what to do to operate and be successful. And so for me, it's just a surer way to find success than trying to kind of figure it out on your own. Like, now other things matter. Like, you need a good location. You still got to hire good people. You still got to train, that kind of thing. But just the concept itself and the idea itself is figured out. And if you've gotten a good franchise, and the ones that have been around for a while creating success, I would qualify as a good franchise, have already figured out the idea that works. And that's why I like it. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy out there right now, which is a fantastic thing. And I think if more people attach themselves to franchises, you would see a greater rate of success and a lower rate of failure. And just by the way, for the audience, I don't mean just food franchise. You can franchise anything. So I'm sure you are, you are fully aware of that. But you can franchise just about any kind of business you can think of. So I just think it's a way to improve success rates and decrease failure rates.
Yeah, I totally agree. Starting a business is so difficult, even when you do it the franchise way. Like I'm pretty vocal about my story of trying to start 8 or 9 different businesses over the years, and all on my own, and just not being able to make it work. And then, first year with our first franchise, it was like, oh wow, this is, pretty turnkey overall. It was just I would, to try to have figured all of that out by myself and managing a build out. I'm impressed that you guys did it that first time around with the restaurant. That's no joke, to plan it out in the store. And
yeah, I mean,
that's serious.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. We almost didn't make it. I mean, yeah, we almost didn't make it. I could have been like a manager and trainee at Enterprise Rent a Car right now or something, and that, which is a great company. I think you can also franchise that. No, no shade. But I'm saying, yeah, we got through it, but we made a lot of mistakes because of what we didn't know, and that we didn't take a proven model. So to your point, it is hard. I mean, starting a business is hard. Even if it is a franchise, still a lot of things that you got to exercise good judgment on and be prepared for. But it's a lot less than what you have to figure out if you're just trying something.
Yeah, for sure.
Good
So
luck.
I saw, I think it was on the article that this year you guys would be approaching around $50 million in sales annually. Is that accurate between all your ventures?
Yes, in total revenue in the venture. So that was one thing that that it probably there's a little bit more nuance to the number, which is so I have a contract over, let's say, 10 stores. This is a real example. Those 10 stores generate $30 million in revenue, right? And I am a percentage owner in that. So my share in that 30 million, it might be 10 million. And so, but across that joint venture and other joint ventures I have, and then in addition to the other stores that I operate independently, we'll blow past 50 million. But that is when you consider all of, kind of all of the revenue that I'm a part of.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm sure that can get just the administrative side. I would imagine gets fairly complex. That with all those joint ventures and the accounting, the legal, the administrative. How do you handle that? That you have a whole team now internally that deals with all that.
For sure. If you want to mess up something administratively, leave it with me. So I have a great team of people, a great administrator, both for me and for the company that handles a lot of that. We have really great accountants, really great attorneys. I have really fantastic, COO, really fantastic manager of HR. So you put people around you that fills in the gaps that you have. And so that's what I've done, and thankfully that has been working very well. But it is a lot to keep up with. I mean, it certainly is a lot to keep up with, and you want to make sure that you have the folks around you that can do just that.
Yeah, the I feel like as you grow more and more, the admin side, it's like impossible. I remember with the first franchise, I would sit in the back of the store and do my own profit and loss statements, which I'm embarrassed to say because I later found out that the bookkeeper was like $200 a month, and I was wasting hours and hours and hours doing these profit and loss statements.
Yep.
Which I just feel like it's a funny story to tell now these days.
There were a bunch of things that we did that, gosh, we should not have touched at all, that we just tried to do on our own. And it's just hard to keep up with. And then, too, if you don't know it in the first place, you're likely to make mistakes. But we did a lot of the same stuff, just trying to do everything. And it would have been better to pay to pay for it on the front end and save the headache on the back end. But we did the same thing.
Here's what's crazy, though. Do you think you would be where you are today if you didn't do the crazy thing of start that first restaurant?
No, but I think that can go both ways. I mean, there's an argument to say, well, if I had prepared myself or got into a franchise, maybe instead of being approaching 50 million, I'd be approaching 100 million. But I will say that it's the best education I've ever gotten by far. It is also the most expensive education I've ever gotten because mistakes in business cost money, and we made them all. But how that shaped me from both like a business professional, from a restaurateur and operator, from a manager and leader, and just in the context of someone that wants to get out in the world and do something worth doing, build something worth having. It really shaped me and fashioned me in that time to both understand it, but also know that I got it in me to get through it and continue to do it. And so I would not take it back. I wouldn't do the same thing the same way, but I'm here now, and I'm happy with where I've gotten to and where I see myself going, and that was critical to that. So I know that's kind of that's a nuanced answer, but yeah, I'm glad that added a lot to me being able to do what I'm able to do today.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people, they get stuck in that place of indecision, or stuck in that place of they're so scared to fail.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys went in with blind confidence. And so that, that triggered a couple of things, but at least you were taking action and you were moving, right? And what's interesting to me is when people just they have these ideas but then they don't do anything because they're trying to get it all figured out, right? They're trying to plan it and figure it out and make sure it's perfect and get ready and get ready and get ready. What would you say to someone who's kind of stuck in that place of analysis paralysis, trying to figure it out?
I would say that entrepreneurship is probably not for you, if I'm being honest. And like everything isn't for everybody, and that's okay. I mean, that is okay. I have tried things that I was shown I should not have tried, or at least this wasn't the thing that I was going to succeed at. But if to me, either being an entrepreneur or getting your idea out in the world has to be so much in your spirit that the idea of not doing it is more painful than the thought of doing it and failing. I could not sit in corporate America and be happy and fulfilled over time with my life. Like I always wanted this. And even when I was going through bankruptcy, I remember having moments where, as hard as this is, I would still rather be here than back in corporate America. And that was affirming to me that I'm doing what I need to be doing and this will work out. Like I think it needs to be something that you can't not do. If it's not that, I don't know that it's for you because it's gonna suck at times. It's going to be hard. This is not for someone just trying to be cute and say they got a business. This is for someone that can't not do it and is willing to go through the fire to get there. That's my advice.
Man, that's super solid. And you didn't pick an easy business. I feel like you picked one of the hardest, most complex routes that you could possibly take, because the food business overall is a tough business, right? Margins are tight in the food business, something that I didn't know getting into it. And then you're operating them in airports with security and daily orders. I mean, we had a giant walk-in freezer. We got an order once a week. I can't even imagine getting orders every day. That's just insane. So how do you keep yourself sane, and what does your day look like?
So one, Tarek, I mean, it's a fine time to tell me all this now. And where was your podcast back in 2007? Because it is an incredibly hard business. On top of being a couple of people that didn't know anything about it from an owner operator standpoint. Had I done my research, I honestly don't know if I'd have gotten into the restaurant business. Because for me, it was about business and entrepreneurship. This was the vehicle we landed on. I'm pleased that I am where I am. Don't get me wrong. But to your point, I mean, there are easier, access points in entrepreneurship. There are easier routes to take. And so we took it, to answer your question, because we just thought we understood it and that it was accessible to us. Like we knew, okay, you need a space. Well, let's go find an empty space and lease it. We know you need to make food. Well, let's go get a chef that can make food. We know it needs to look nice inside. So let's go get an architect and a design. It just felt like intellectually it was something we could put together and that we understood the consumer enough to attract them. But that's what it was. And so some of this is about exposure. And I think it's really important to expose oneself to as much as possible so that you got a broader kind of pool of information to make quality decisions on. But it was a matter of exposure and what we thought was accessible to us and what we thought we understood enough.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? What's your plans for expansion and growth? Like, what does it look like? It seems that you're really hitting your stride now, from the outside at least.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know that I've ever been more excited about the future in terms of business. But what else are you going to be? You're going to be, pessimistic about it. May as well be excited. But
You could be. I mean, it could be going. It could be going the reverse.
no, that's a fact. So we're definitely going to continue to grow in this airport concession space, and we're going to grow by winning RFPs, winning these bids. We're also going to grow by M&A. We're looking at and already have executed acquisitions over the past couple of years, and in the process of two now, one of which I mentioned to you, whether that's, just us on our own or partnering with a team of people. But certainly looking to continue to grow in this space now that we have a better sense as to how to do it. I am also launching very soon my first franchise brand. So after operating a bunch of different brands and kind of figuring out how they do what they do and the systems and all of that. I mean, again, it's been a decade, so I have now done my homework. I'm not going in blind. I have studied and taken the notes and dug in and worked it and figured out a lot of it, I think, and I'm putting all of that into a food and beverage quick service brand that I am absolutely over the moon about it. I can't mention the details yet because we're working on closing out a couple of things, but I am excited about that, and I want to get on the other side of the franchise equation and become a franchisor after we open, a good number and prove the model and all that, all of which we plan to do in the next 12 to 18 months. And then I really want to help people understand franchising and particularly help, folks that have a lot of entrepreneurial energy and the drive and the thrust and the good sense, but maybe not the understanding, like the next level of information to not stumble as much out of the blocks like we did. And so I'm going to be making it a point to share that information where I can and when I can and how I can to help make for more success among folks, particularly, Black and brown communities, just because I feel like business ownership is so important and to help with, economic mobility. I just want to be a part of helping more folks get into that position. So I'm going to be very intentional about that coming up. And I'm also very excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, we're gonna have to do a round two at some point because there's a bunch of stuff that we didn't hit on that I'm really curious about, particularly the M&A side of things, and kind of how you guys fund some of these things. I think there's a whole interesting part of the conversation, and then round two maybe you'll be ready to talk more about your new franchise brand, which is super exciting. Congratulations, becoming a franchisor is no joke.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna find out. But I feel more ready for it, and I am really excited about it. I've been working on it for a very long time. But no, I'd be happy to talk about it. Yeah, the M&A space is a whole different thing, and depending on how you fund it, whether it's private equity, there's a lot we can talk about. So I'm happy to do it whenever you like.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, Randy, thanks so much for coming on, and just congratulations, man. Congratulations on all your success and your grit and everything that you're making happen, and just being an inspiration in the community, man. I mean, just me reading that article and seeing the interview, I know it inspired the hell out of me. And I was like, man, this is so cool and so awesome. And then, just seeing someone who looks like me produce, what you're doing. It's cool, man. You're inspiring people that you probably have no idea that you're even, reaching, which is really cool. So congratulations.
No, I really appreciate that, man. And I really sincerely appreciate the invite. I've known about you a lot longer than you've known about me.
Oh, that's crazy.
Because I think I'm on your newsletter. I get your emails. All the time someone is like, wait, Tart? I'm like, yeah. But to your point, there's not a lot of folks that I'm aware of that are meaningfully in this space. But then also you're out here sharing knowledge and connecting, the dots for people. And that is just really important. So the same way you say you never know who you're inspiring, man, I've been watching you, and the work you're doing is inspiring in itself. So I just love seeing it. And I just want you to know that, man. There's a lot to be proud of that you're doing. It's awesome.
Cool, man. I appreciate that. That's crazy. I didn't know that. And that's really awesome. So I'm sure this will be the first of many conversations, but yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
You got it, man. Let's definitely stay in touch.
Likewise. Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.